Hello, this is Olivia Brown, your host, and this is Grant Atkinson. He is a reporter from Western Journal, and we have a special guest today, Lauren Tonchik, the VP of Events for Turning Point USA.
Thanks, Olivia.
Yeah, we had an interesting thing happen recently with The View. They called Turning Point USA neo-Nazis. So we're going to show this clip. Mm-hmm. Tell us after you see this clip what that feels like for you.
Absolutely.
The conservative group Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo-Nazis and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis is what I want to know.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit. We'll be right back.
So on Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly neo-Nazi demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
So what is your response to that? Them trying to give kind of a fake apology? That's what it seems like to me.
Yes. Absolutely a fake apology. First of all, you can't defame our students, our event, and our staff saying that we are neo-Nazis. These people were like clearly outside of the event. As they said, we did try to remove them. Unfortunately, it was public property. But to say that the same people that were outside were equivalent to the over 5,000 passionate, hardworking students inside is absolutely just crazy. We work very, very hard at Turning Point. Our students do as well. We're passionate about the movement to better our country and to make that change that our country needs desperately. And frankly, it looked like these protesters were actually paid to be there.
We see a lot of that nowadays, though.
And we saw it with our security. It was very coordinated. You could just tell by those people that were out there getting them removed that if they were supposed to be there, if we agreed with their ideologies, they would have been inside. We deeply condone that. Mm-hmm. We do not agree with that. That's not anything that we support, anything that we condone. And to associate that with us and to defame our students on such a public level and then provide some apology that clearly was not sincere or well thought out is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why we're taking that stance that we are.
Yeah, and that's why you decided to send a cease and desist,
yes,
right?
A very strong cease and desist, which today they did acknowledge on camera. Not well enough. I know that they cut to commercial very quickly, and right after one of them apologized, they're like, "But they still invited, so whatever."
Yeah,
it's not thought out. They clearly don't care. It wasn't that long ago that Whoopi Goldberg was benched from The View for saying that the Holocaust wasn't a racial issue. This is a clear trait that keeps on happening with them, and I don't know when they'll learn their lesson. But we are very committed to ensure that our company, our students, our event does not tolerate this and will not stand by it, and that the truth is
exactly. Yeah, it does seem very pervasive what Whoopi's been trying to do and all this. I'd like to get your response to this and what you have to say and what you've seen.
Well, I think there's a couple things to take away from it. First of all, it's the same sort of sense of entitlement from the media that they can do whatever they want. These women on The View, they think that they can say things that are demonstrably false and that they're just never going to have to face consequences for it. So, you know what? I think that, some people are angry with Turning Point or they think Turning Point is being petty. I don't think so at all. I think it's consequences for the actions of lying about someone on the air. You can't just go on and say fake things and then pretend like you're the victim when somebody calls you out for it. I mean, I think these women need to be held accountable, so I think it's a good thing. And then the second thing, just on their accusations that they were making, obviously they make no sense because they were outside the event. And I mean, you see neo-Nazis or, white nationalists or heavily radical right people who are not the kind of people that conservative movement would condone, people who are, radicalized and who believe in white supremacy and things that conservatives do not believe in. You see these people at all kinds of events. You see them at plenty of leftist events too, and you're not going to hear the views say that because there were some neo-Nazis at a pride parade or something like that, that makes the pride parade inherently neo-Nazi. That just makes no sense. Like, just because someone's at an event doesn't mean that the event is endorsing those people. It's just completely insane.
It's hypocritical, and also it makes me think, I don't think they expected Turning Point USA to take action, because conservatives sadly have a record of not speaking up for their values when they should. So kudos to you guys for doing that. That's so important. And you know, I wish I could have gone to your summit. It sounds fun.
We'll have America Fest here in December here in Phoenix, 15,000 people. Hopefully none of this happens again, but as you can see, we're willing to fight back. We're not going to tolerate this. I think it shows that Turning Point in this event, we've grown so much, and they're clearly threatened by us. They're like, oh shoot, conservatives now are speaking back, and we're going to show that we are like not going to stop. Look, everyone can have their own views. That's what we promote at Turning Point USA. Free speech, go for it, but do not say that our event was endorsing that we're accepting them. That is just completely false, and we're just not going to tolerate it.
Yeah, and like you said, it was outside. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciated having you here, and I'm glad that you could drive up for this. And thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Faith, family, football. I mean, those are my priorities, and I just think that this issue of life, of saving life, the abortion issue is one it's so big that it needs to be talked about. I would encourage them, if they have a pregnancy that's wasn't planned, to go through with it. Let that unborn child be born, and if at that time you don't feel like you can care for it, you don't have the means or the wherewithal, then Sarah and I will take that baby. Any player on our team, any female staff member, any staff member, or anybody in our family or our extended family that doesn't feel like after they have a baby that they can take care of for it, we got a big house. We'll raise that baby.
So, wow, raising a child really goes beyond what is expected of a football coach raising his own players' children. So to that, it's amazing. So Jim in question, he is a football coach of the Michigan Wolverines, and he's taken a very pro-life stance recently, and it's really caught the eyes of the media for him saying that. And it's a very brave stance to say, but I don't know if I would be able to do that myself. What does this make you feel? I know that you're recently engaged, you're going to get married. Does this idea to you freak you out that you would, me and my wife might, have to adopt, or what? Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's something that we've talked about at our church and things like that, the importance of adoption. I think, the first point to make is that I don't think that you have to say something like this or to say I'm going to adopt all babies to be pro-life.
I agree with that.
A lot of Democrats say, these people are saying they're pro-life, but they're not going to adopt. Like, guess what? I'm not in a place financially right now where I'm going to raise a child. I'm about to get married. I'm young. I would love to have children one day. I would love to adopt one day, and I plan to, most likely. But to say that because I'm not going to adopt children at every second means that I can't be pro-life, I think that's ridiculous. So first of all, I just wanted to say that. But second of all, I think it's very interesting and powerful to see Jim Harbaugh say this, because this is a guy who is coaching at what most people would consider a top 10 football school in the country. I mean, they made the college football playoff last year. They're very successful. He's making tens of millions of dollars to coach this team. And so I think when he says this, I think he's serious about it. I think he means it.
I do too.
And I think that he has the means to do so. And, everyone,
he says he has a big house.
Right. Everyone has limited time and space, and I know that. So eventually he wouldn't be able to raise, 50 kids at the same time or whatever. But
I know
believe
that's what I was thinking too. I was like, ideally I'd like to do that, but thinking about, I don't even know if I want to have more than 2 kids.
Yeah.
So personally, how am I supposed to do, 8, 9 kids? If I had to, take in a family, someone struggling, I probably would. But, ideally, that's not what you plan for. And I do think it's so great, everybody that does adopt, everyone that does foster. I have a family member that has fostered for many years, and I've been able to see their foster children and their experiences, and it's very beautiful. And I really commend Jim Harbaugh for doing this, because it really does go above and beyond what is expected of a coach, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Christians carry the large load when it comes to adoption, when comes to fostering. Christians are doing a huge percentage of that. So this idea that Christians need to step up, I think, we can always be better. Obviously, we can always be encouraging people who are in a position to do so to adopt, to foster. That's great, but it shouldn't come from a place of guilt. It should come from a place of, I'm going to do this because I feel like I'm called to do this and I want to. And Jim Harbaugh feels passionately about this, and he has shown that it's not going to be just something that he says and doesn't mean, just empty words. I mean, he's made these promises now on record, and I truly believe that if he needed to raise a child of one of his kids or one of his players, he would do it.
That was going to be my next question. Do you think he'd really do it?
I do. I truly do, especially because, he's saying this on camera in front of everyone. So he understands. I mean, he's a media guy. Every college football coach at a major institution understands that when you say something, it's out there. So he's thinking about what he's saying. He's determining whether it's true. He's not going to just go out there and say something off the cuff that he doesn't believe. I mean, I think he knew that in saying this, he was bringing in the possibility that he might have to do this one day, and I believe he will do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's really important to know what the restrictions are in Michigan specifically. So I was just looking at them this morning. In Michigan, it is legal for abortion, but it is restricted up to 24 to 26 weeks. I looked this up, and I think that it's very deceiving when they use weeks, because it doesn't seem like it's as long of a time, but that's 7 months. That's almost the 3rd trimester. And I can't imagine a state that would let you have an abortion 7 months later. Like, at that point, you only have 2 months to go. And as a woman, going through pregnancy is a very tough thing. Why would you go through all the morning sickness, all these different things that go along with it, and for 7 months? That's what the Democrats are really championing right now, is that they say abortion for all, abortion at any time. And that's why we're really fighting back against this, because, life really matters.
And these Democrats are not consistent in their definitions. They don't have a definition of what constitutes life, because it's so clear that a life begins at conception. And so they can keep moving it around, and they can say, when it's viable outside the womb, when it's this, when it's that. But no matter what you give these Democrats, even if, the Supreme Court said you can have abortions up until the 3rd trimester, and then after the 3rd trimester, you can no longer have abortions, they wouldn't be okay with that either. They want to be able to abort the baby at any time. Like you said, they want to be able to kill it the day before it's going to come out of the womb. So there's no definition that they adhere to, and that just shows to me the moral ambiguity and just the disgusting nature of what they're doing, because they don't have a definition for life. They believe that these kids can be killed at any time, and they can keep trying to make up new definitions for life. But really, when push comes to shove, they just want abortion on demand, and it's never going to be enough for them. So
yeah, it's just gotten more and more radical throughout the years. It used to be rare circumstances, as they would say, Hillary Clinton said, and no. That is not what they're doing now. They are saying up until birth. I've seen things they're saying after birth. I feel like that's crazy to me. So it's really interesting to see all these different debates that are coming out, specifically after Roe versus Wade, which was so historical and just happened so recently. Speaking of ESPN, though, we have a story for you today about ESPN and who is backing them. So Disney owns ABC and Hulu and ESPN. And what they are doing now, it made the Democrats really, really mad. You know, they're so woke that I wouldn't expect that this would happen. But what happened was the senatorial and congressional campaign committees for the Democrats, they tried and they purchased ad space on Hulu, ABC, and ESPN that was anti-guns and pro-abortion. And it ran on the ESPN and the ABC that moved forward, but Hulu did not play it. And they're like, Hulu, what are you doing? We need to have our abortion and our anti-guns on a streaming service. It's interesting to see and think about that streaming services now are not beholden to the same rules that television has, because the Communication Act of 1934 made it so political ads were only, you had to show both sides. So on TV, you have to show a Republican, you have to show a Democrat equally. They don't have to do that on Hulu. I wonder if we're going to get some sort of new legislation with what we're seeing new political ads being on streaming services. What do you think of that?
I mean, I would think that you would have to see something like that coming. I mean, obviously, it's dangerous to have a streaming service like Hulu being able to pick and choose, you know, what messages they want to put out there. That only campaigning for Democrats and not campaigning for Republicans being a possibility. So I would think that you would probably see some sort of legislation, but I don't know for sure. It's kind of a new area that hasn't really been explored before as far as political ads. So it'll be interesting to see what could happen.
It's all very new. Call your congressman if this is something that you want to get passed. I was looking at it, and so first they said, no, we're not going to do it. And then the Democrats said, you know, we're going to boycott you. Different very liberal ad companies said that they are no longer going to put their ad space there, which was billions of dollars that they were making. And they're like, oh, we're not going to make money. We need to cave in to this pressure. And then they did. So unfortunately, they did say, yes, we will do these ads, and we'll continue to do political ads, but we have the right to choose if it fits the tone of our company, and we have the rights to edit it. That, to me, is very problematic.
It definitely is problematic. And to me, it's just Hulu kind of trying to play both sides, because there's no question that every single exec at Hulu, every single person in a high position in the Disney company, in Hulu, ABC, ESPN, any of these outlets, they're all woke. They're all on the left, every single one of them. If there's a conservative working at one of those companies, they will never move up to be in the top positions because only the woke are allowed to be in those positions.
Yeah.
So
I actually had a friend that worked for Disney, and out of his own conscience, he said, I have to quit. It doesn't fit my values anymore. And that was a couple years ago. They've gotten even more woke since then.
Yeah. So to me, the Hulu thing where they were saying we're not going to play these pro-abortion or these anti-gun ads, this has nothing to do with a moral leaning from them or them wanting to be fair to the Republicans. It is all about money. And so to me, it does say that the Republicans are, you know, making a strong push. Conservatives are saying we're not going to, you know, patronize these businesses that are woke and that are saying that our ideas are horrible. And so you've seen a lot of businesses who are woke kind of dropping the woke messaging and kind of being a little more closeted about their wokeness because they don't want to lose customers. To me, that's exactly what Hulu is doing. They don't really care about Republicans. They just don't want to put an ad that would piss off a Republican and make them, cancel their Hulu service.
Yeah.
And so they were doing this for money. Then they realized that they were going to lose more money than they're actually going to gain because all these Democrats were going to pull their funding and pull their ad space. And so then they just caved again. So it may look like they kind of went back and forth. I don't think they really did. I think they were woke the whole time. They're just trying to figure out how they can make the most money. And in the end, they determined that putting these woke ads was going to at least lose them the least amount of money. So that's what they chose to do.
Yeah, that really makes sense to me. It all comes down to money. I feel like everything comes down to money nowadays on what we're seeing in politics, in entertainment, everything that really encapsulates it. And it's so different from the Christian worldview of money. Yes, we are supposed to work. The Bible says, yes, you need to work, or there's a Bible verse like, if you don't work, you don't eat. It's important to do that, but the Christian mindset is that you're doing it to glorify God. Making money is not the end goal. And that's what we're seeing a lot here. And I think that's really pervasive in our society. And I think that's caused a major problem. I am a pro-capitalist because capitalism is so important and because socialism destroys the entire country. But I think that we do really need to be thinking about what is your end goal for your job. I know that for me personally, I've interviewed for jobs and I was like, you know what? This just doesn't work for me. I need to do what fits with my values. And sadly, a lot of people are not doing that.
I think it's hard too because we're in a space now where you can't really be in the middle if you're any sort of business. There's no such thing as a politically neutral business anymore because all these businesses are being forced by the left to either, vow their commitment to wokeness, and if they don't do that, then it's assumed that they are on the far right and they're like super conservative. And I don't think it's necessarily true. I think maybe 10 years ago, Hulu could have been fine saying, you know what, we're not going to play any political ads. We're not going to play these anti-Republican ads. We're not going to play these anti-Democrat ads. We're just going to be a streaming service. But it's almost like that's not an option anymore because if they say we're not going to play these anti-Republican ads, even though they are clearly woke and every single one of their shows has a token LGBT character and it has all these woke ideals that are being pushed in it, if they don't do every single thing the left wants them to do, then all of a sudden they will be painted as if they're some radical conservatives.
They're not progressive enough
Right.
for these very, very, very radical liberals now. And that's the problem that we're seeing. The Democrats now versus even 50 years ago are so much more radicalized. And I think that older people, this is my opinion, just an idea, is older people who, have been grown up voting Democrat and, aren't really paying attention to what's going on now, but they're like, I've always voted Democrat. The Democrat values now are not the same as they were during that day. And that's so important that we need to be talking to these people, informing these people about this.
Absolutely. And I think that shift to the left is why you see all these conservative alternatives coming up, like, the Daily Wire doing a streaming service, all these companies based on conservative values. I mean, there's coffee companies who are saying we're a conservative coffee company because every other coffee company is on the left. Honestly, I like those companies. I support those companies. I think it would be better if we could just have all coffee companies who said, we're not on the left or the right. We're just a freaking coffee company.
Neutral.
But it's not an option anymore. And so that's why you see these conservative companies popping up, is because that's the only, there is no neutral. They have to be either conservative or liberal. And so I think that's why you're seeing these businesses making these decisions. I think it's a dangerous direction for the country to go in, but I don't really see a viable alternative at this point if the left are not going to allow any sort of neutrality.
Yeah, definitely. And wjlive, we really value our conservative views and thoughts, and really that's how we've built the company. It's been around since about 2009, and it's grown so much more from what it was, but we're relying on you and your subscription. We have several ways that you can join for Western Journal to become a subscriber. Please go to westernjournal.com/join. Is that it?
Yep, that's right.
Make sure that's right. And please sign up, because that's how we can afford to do shows like this, talk to you, have awesome guests. We're relying on you, and we're so thankful for you. Please continue to turn in. We are just adding another day, which is so exciting. So we are now going to be doing Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.